periods of time that they're logging. It's been overlooked.
So in other words, what you're saying, Gill, it's a very interesting thing because I had never, thought about it that way or connected it, but the back tombs actually could be maybe like the time for each celestial event, or roughly kind of if you will, a measuring stick that they had, like you said, not a timeline, but like an event calendar, basically stating when these things were going to happen, and for some reason their calendar just abruptly ends in 2012.
That's the theory. Yeah, that is a theory. Right now, I have not been able to prove that because I only got one or two counts from them, and unless I read the original data, because reading the Mayan counting system is quite easy. It's not that difficult. And if I could go back, that's why I think they have to remake their calendar every 360 years and add another event to the outer perimeter. Okay. And so it's a misunderstanding. We have that often when reading ancient objects. We go with an assumption, okay, it's a calendar, now let's make it work for a yearly thing. What are they trying? No, it's an event calendar. Totally different. They were fascinated when this object's coming by because of the earthquakes, the droughts, the severity of it. They wanted to know so where they could prepare grain and water ahead of time, just like we would.
I have a question here from the chat room, Gill, that I'm going to ask you. It says, if the cornfield crops, that design that was made, the astral art, aligns with Planet X. Have you seen that, or have you looked into that?
Well, let me give you some information that's hard numbers, okay? That's hard you can't dispute on where the object is at. It's going to be it's going to come out of the constellation Sagittarius, okay? This is where the Voyager and Pioneer probes are. Look, there's 12 constellations on a planetary plane. Even if you would divide it in the vertical, another 12. What are the odds of it being the same constellation? Very high. Very high. So you got Voyager and Pioneer that went to that constellation. You got the biblical data that's pointing to that constellation. You got the Chinese data that's pointing to that constellation. You got the UL study that new gravity is affecting the orbits of comets in that exact region of space, confirmed by a London astronomer that confirmed these same findings of comets that is affected in that same space. You got 5 studies that point to the same. We got hard data here. Look, you can take clay tablets, you can take papyrus scrolls, you can take any type of data. If you can bring it into a laboratory and reproduce it as a model, show that it's repeatable, that's science. I'm sorry, but the way they interpreted the Sumerian text cannot be produced a proper model that matches history. The 3,600-year orbit and coming out from some other does not match the repeated data throughout history.
Larry, do you have a question?
Without the Chinese data, we could not verify this. Huh?
Larry, do you have a question for our guest?
Yeah, I find that very, very interesting, and I wanted to. I just saw a new post this morning that's very interesting. Let me read this real quick because it kind of goes along with a little bit of what he's saying. I got this off of the Quail Alerts. It says that there's an alert that came out from the Inuit elders regarding Earth's wobble, and they're reporting their sky has changed. And this is, they've also coordinated that with NASA. They say, this is what the Inuits are saying, that their sun doesn't rise where it used to, and their sun is higher in the sky, and their days are longer, and they're finding animal life with burns and on their bodies and dead animals, and also the sun, the stars, and the moon have changed where they are in the sky.
That's the first I've heard of this, and I'm not able to confirm it. Now, I do know that if I put my telescope up and point it to the North Star, everything is still showing correctly. That the data that's in the telescope is matching, like, in other words, if Earth tilted and it was not, the 24 degrees tilt, whatever, then we would have a problem. And you'd see it in a telescope, in setting up a telescope. And I'm thinking that they, I'd have to look into it further. I can't answer you properly on that, except that I haven't found anything yet.
Okay, just one more question. Augusto brought up Hercobulus by B.M. Robelou, and also, he called it the Red Planet. Are you aware of the Coburn, so-called Coburn Bible, and or the Coburn ancient books that report about not only a planet, in other words, another planet, but also an entourage of a dead star? Do you know anything about that, or are you just talking about Planet X?
Well, that's why I called it Planet 7X, is to separate the data, because the Chinese model makes no mention of additional orbiting planets. And if you look at the Bible, if we had an object that came between the Earth and the Moon, and that the universe is ruled by electromagnetic, not gravity, I think that they would document it that it had other orbital. I think it's a misunderstanding of meteorites, or debris following it, but not actually moons per se. But time would tell. But I'm just saying, my data does not document. There's nothing in the data that I found that proves that out. Therefore, I can't say it.
Sure. What about a binary solar? In other words, our star also having a so-called twin, a binary universe.
That's another thing that doesn't prove out. Our closest star is 4.5 light years away. All right? If it needed another star to rotate, which you'd have to have an orbit way beyond 3,600 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hundreds of times larger, probably. And this object is proving out. Look, the last time we saw it was in 1054 with the data from the Chinese. It was seen before that, but it was, but not. It seemed like it's been censored during the Dark Ages, and when the Vatican had extreme power, and people had their own concerns on just trying to live during the plagues and the drought that they'd had during those time periods. If you read the stories, it's very horrific time.
It's a bad time, yeah.
And right, so documenting this object in the sky was not exactly a priority to them. And if it was, it would have probably been labeled as heresy, and they would have been confiscated, or you would have been hung, even trying to document this thing. It's a very strange period of time. So, but we do have we do have some plaques or carvings or paintings representing a couple of sightings. And what's interesting, they'll say this is Halleys, because they'll show two comets in the sky. Well, they also show data in the painting of meteorite showers bombarding a town where buildings are coming. You can see the earth is shifting. You see trees are down. You see people are holding their stomach from sickness, whether it's drought or starvation or illness or what, or gas. It could be, some sort of gas that comes out of the ground. That's not done by Halleys Comet. There is no documentation because Halleys Comet, its orbit does not intersect Earth's planetary plane. Therefore, its debris cannot collide with Earth. It's impossible.
Well, let me bring up another really weird one here. You know where in the Bible it talks about the moon does not keep its place. In other words, it leaves its place of where it's supposed to be. Could this object somehow influence that event in the future?
Are you talking about Joel? Where Joel says?
Yeah.
Let me read it. Let me find it real quick here.
Oh no. Let's see. I think I believe in Isaiah it talks about it too.
Okay. Well, there's one that's very, very common, and let's see here. Well, Joel says, I'm going to just paraphrase it. I don't have it in front of me.
Sure.
Joel states that the sun will go down at noon, and he'll take what's normally called a day of brightness dark. We used to assume that used to be an eclipse, but that's not what it's describing now. Because he would have stated that he would have darkened the sun. He didn't say he darkened the sun. He said he made the sun go down early by 6 hours or more. Mm-hmm. That's the rotation of the earth.
I think I found a scripture here that I think is what Larry's referring to in Isaiah 24:20. Isaiah 24:23 says, "Then the moon shall be confounded."
Yeah.
And the sun shall be ashamed. And then there's others where it says the moon shall be as the light of the sun. You know, in other words, the moon is going to intensify in light. And in Isaiah 13:10, he talks about the moon shall not cause her light to shine.
Okay.
So obviously there's going to be a lot of impact on the moon as far as it's going to act weird. I guess that's what you're trying to ask, Larry, right?
That's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, let me give you the planetary physics version on this. Okay. You can only have a new moon create an eclipse of the sun. And that's when, if you look at a new moon, it's totally black in the sky. So if they're referring to both of these objects having an eclipse, it has to be a third object. Because the moon has to be away from its new moon position. Whether it's in full moon or a quarter of that or whatever, it has to be away from its new moon for you to even see a difference in the moon. For it to be eclipsed in reddish color. And for the sun to be eclipsed, so you're talking about a third object. This is the same thing that took place during Yeshua sacrifice. Remember the 3 hours of that they state that there was the eclipse for 3 hours? Mm-hmm. The sun and the moon went dark? Well, we have a problem here. Passover is on a full moon.